friends, it's the weekend, which means it's time for another week's end wrap up. Before I get started, two things. First, the cat just got booted out of the chair, so she might be kind of ticked off. Don't know if she's going to make an appearance in this video. Puppies have also decided that upstairs is their friend, so they might also make an appearance. Just, you know, some little wildlife sighting tips for you guys. The second thing is I have gained several new subscribers in the last week or two, and I just wanted to thank you guys, all of you, so much for subscribing. Welcome to my channel. I am just so honored that you decided to subscribe and that people watch my videos. That just makes me really excited. I started YouTube because I wanted to just have a chance to talk about the books that I am reading and to kind of think about my reading life a little bit more and to kind of teach myself to read a little bit more deliberately and a little more critically. And I told myself at the very beginning, if I had nobody watch my videos except my mom, hi mom, that would be just fine with me. So the fact that anybody else wants to watch my videos, it makes me really happy. So thank you guys for being here. So this was a pretty good reading week. I read 6 books this week, or finished 6 books this week. So I'm gonna go a little bit out of order. 4 books that I finished were the first 4 volumes of the Sandman series, and so I'll just talk about all of those together really quickly, and then I finished 2 other novels. So the Sandman series. I talked a little bit about the Sandman series in last week's wrap up. I really don't like the covers. So I'm just gonna leave them off the screen. I talked about the series a little bit last week. I had been wanting to reread it, and I read Sandman Overture, which is like a sequel and a prequel to the series, and then I went out and I bought the first volume because it wasn't at the library, and I was in the middle of it last week, so I finished this one off pretty quickly. I've heard some people say that like you should just skip to volume 4, but I don't agree with that. First of all, because this is one of my favorites. I think that's maybe just because I like origin stories. There's something about the like learning about the world and learning about the main characters, and this kind of like there's this process of discovery. Like, what is this new thing? And you're figuring it out, and sometimes the author or the, you know, filmmakers or TV show producers or whatever are figuring it out too, and it's just, there's something about that that I really enjoy. So I really like this volume. It's not the best. Even Gaiman admits that it's not the best of the Sandman series, but I don't think you should skip it. Just read it with the knowledge that the series gets better as it goes on. The ending is just incredible. I was just so blown away by like the last 3 volumes. Do not despise the small beginnings, because things that happen here have impacts later. So this follows, it introduces us to Dream, who is the Sandman. He's one of the Endless, this 5 beings or entities that represent different things, and he presides over the kingdom of dreams, and when you dream, that's his responsibility. And he's very powerful, but at the very beginning in issue 1, he's captured, and that causes problems in the real world, and so we kind of see him escape captivity and seek revenge on the people who captured him, and then also kind of work to restore his power. In volume 2, the main story arc is that there are several of the major dream beings that have escaped, most of them not very nice ones, during Dream's absence, and so he goes and he tracks them down. This also introduces us to several characters who become important later. So this one is also very good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. I think I gave them both like 3.5 or 4 stars. Volume 3 is not my favorite. This one is 4 issues that were collected, and they're basically like standalone short stories. I think a couple of them send out some threads that are picked up later, but they're not really that essential to the main story, except maybe the first one, but I can't remember. But like 2 of the other ones are kind of strange, and it's just not my favorite. But one of the issues in here is called A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's Shakespeare and his company performing A Midsummer Night's Dream to actual Oberon and Titania and their actual fairy court, at the behest of Dream. So Dream isn't even like a main character in most of these stories. He's kind of like a peripheral. He usually comes in at the end as almost kind of a deus ex machina in some of them, to kind of like fix everything. So if you want to kind of like get into the story quicker, the like main story, you could skip these and come back to them. Like I said, I enjoy several of them, but the other two I'm like, don't really care. And then this one is where the story really starts to kick off, with 3 volumes under his belt. Gaiman has found his stride. He's much more familiar with what he's doing. The team has kind of come together. Things are working now. And this is one continuous story. The other volumes, even when they tell a story over the volume, usually there's 1 or 2 issues that are a little bit tangential, but this one is totally coherent. So Dream is given the key to hell because Lucifer retires. And he's like, here, have fun. And Dream's like, well, I don't want it, but a lot of people want the keys to hell, and he has to deal with all of them. And this, like I said, is where the main story arc kicks off. So a lot of things that are introduced, like everything that's introduced here becomes important later. The characters, the plot points, who gets hell, everything. So that's all the first 4 volumes of the Sandman series. I look forward to reading the other, I think there's 6 more. I think there's 10. There's either 10 or 11 volumes, I can't remember. I'm looking forward to reading those as I find them. I have a book waiting on hold for me at the library, so I'll probably go back this week. I'm trying to finish 1 or 2 more books before I go pick up my hold. My library is great. I'm gonna miss them when I move. They not only are really great about bringing in holds from other libraries in their network, they auto-renew your books for you for twice. So if there's no holds on the book, you basically just keep it for 9 weeks and you don't have to do anything, which is awesome. And also they hold your holds for like 2 weeks, which is amazing. Like all the other libraries is like, if you don't get there in 3 days, they're sending it back. So I really just appreciate them. Next thing I finished was Falling Kingdoms, and this was just so great. I said, I think in my last video, that I just really want a fantasy that is just like, I was looking for a particular flavor of book, and I thought that this might be it, but this is definitely that flavor of book. It's like, it's a fantasy world, and it's interesting and political, and there were lots of twists and turns in the story, but it wasn't like too deep or too intense or like too much. It was just like a fun story. It's not frothy at all. Lots of people die, like, but it just was interesting, and it didn't demand too much of me, and it was like a good summer read fantasy. I'm not explaining that well because I don't totally understand what it was that I was looking for in the story, but I read this, I really liked it. I think it was just that like I kind of was able to fall into the story. I've just been finding it like all too easy to put down a book and then like kind of forget I'm reading it and be like a week later be like, oh, I was supposed to finish that. I've just been having that problem a lot. I think it's because I'm reading so many books at the moment. You know, you just like, you have a lot of misses for your every hit that you get. This was a hit. I read it in a couple of chunks until I was about 150 pages in, and then I sat down one night to read just a little bit before bed, and then I looked up and I had finished the book. Like, I just kind of forgot to look at the clock or to think about how I needed to get up and go to work the next day or anything. I just like read the book in a gulp, and it was great. It just felt so good. So I didn't give this 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars because I felt like some of the writing was just a little bit basic. I think that will change as the series goes on. I hope it does anyway. It wasn't too bad. There were just a couple of places where I kind of found it jarring and like it pulled me out of the story a little bit to actually think about the prose. Like, this is not gorgeous prose anyway, but it was pretty much like invisible, which is fine for a story. Like, if the prose is invisible, if I'm not like gasping at how beautiful it is, it should be invisible, because the other time I notice prose is when it's not great. So I just noticed a couple of times in there. But as a like YA fantasy, definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, there were some twists and turns. So briefly, this is about 3 kingdoms and several young people who are from these 3 kingdoms. For various reasons, there's a war brewing, and all of the teenagers are directly involved in some way. This is a 5-book series, and it was definitely planned to be a long series, so the kind of build of the story, like, it's definitely not finished. The book worked well as a single volume. It had a good beginning, middle, and end, but there's not a lot of resolution though, so which was fine. Like, I didn't feel dissatisfied with the book the way it's going. I'm looking forward to picking up the second one. I actually already have it from the library, so I might even start reading it this week. And then the last book I finished was Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente, and I actually just finished this yesterday, and I kind of had to push myself to finish this book. Or really, I kind of had to push myself to read this book. I really wanted to like this. It was billed kind of as like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy vibe, and the premise just sounded so interesting. To avoid more conflict, all of the sentient races, alien races, decided that every year they would hold a music contest, and that would determine a number of things. Like, that's how they do their political maneuvering, and that's how they determine who gets what resources. And if you're a new race and you are not yet stamped as sentient, the stakes are a little higher. You're invited to participate, and your participation can prove that you're sentient or not. And if you are proved that you're sentient, then awesome, you're in the club, you get to participate every year, you get galactic resources, that's great. But your first year, if you lose, which means coming in last, so it's like a ranking, it's not that there's one winner and then everybody else loses or anything like that, but if you come in last, then your race is obliterated off of your planet. So the stakes are kind of high. And so the story opens with the humans being contacted by one of the alien races and being like, congratulations, you have been chosen to compete in this year's competition. Except all of the musicians it's set slightly in the future, so all of the musicians that were on the nomination list for participating are dead, except for the 2 remaining members of a 3-member band that's washed up and has been broken up for 10 years, and the 2 members don't even talk to each other. And so everybody's understandably a little concerned about their ability, including the musicians themselves. And the premise just sounded so much fun and so interesting. And the first chapter that I read, like I said in the read a chapter tag, had a lot of potential. I liked the narrative style for the most part, but I had a couple of problems with the story though that just made me kind of feel like I was slogging through it. And the biggest problem is I think it's too long. It's only about 250 pages, but I really think it should have lost at least 50 pages. There's a lot of telling about past competitions and telling about different alien races, and I found it interesting, but I think it just went too long. I would have liked some of that, but not nearly as much as what existed, because we're more than halfway through the book before the main characters, Decibel Jones and St. Ultraviolet, are their stage names. It's great. It's they're funny. It's hilarious. Before they even leave the planet, we're almost 2/3 of the way through the book, and so it's just too much backstory. I feel like I would have appreciated tantalizing glimpses and a couple of funny little stories, but there's so many chapters just that's all there is, and it doesn't really advance the story very much, and I feel like I didn't need it for the story. And if it had been gone, then I could have focused more on the story, which was actually good. So that was kind of my problem. It made me a little annoyed that it wasn't more edited, because I liked the main story thread. I thought that was really fun and interesting, and I just a lot of the other chapters were boring though, and so it made me not want to keep going. I did finish it. I gave it 3 stars because, like I said, I like the story, but that part just really bugged me. And the other thing that I didn't love about the story is there was a little bit of a current of look at all of the horrible things humans have done. Are they really sentient? And I didn't mind that being asked. I think it's worth pointing out. And there was even a couple of paragraphs towards the end of the story that not only was it pointed out, but it was part of one of the main characters' kind of character development, part of his own personal concern, and I thought that was like really well placed and well done. So I don't have a problem with asking the question, but I felt like it was mentioned a lot and kind of like brought up over and over again. And again, the narrator did a lot of telling, and that just kind of bugged me. Like I felt like I was being lectured to a little bit, and I don't mind reading stuff like that, but quirky sci-fi is not where I'm looking for it. And she, like I said, she did it really well towards the end of the story, and so it wasn't like I'm asking for the whole thing to be cut out. I just like would prefer not to be preached at. I think it's more effective that way anyway. Yeah, those were my criticisms. I've now talked about this for a really long time, so good for me. So I'm going out of town for a little while next week to visit, not to visit a friend, to visit a friend, but actually because she's getting married is why I'm going. To visit a friend and attend her wedding. So I'm not sure like how much reading I'm gonna get done because those couple of days are gonna be pretty busy, but also I will be on an airplane. I think I'm gonna bring Mistborn with me because it's a book that I own, and I don't like traveling with library books, and most of the other books that I have to read right now are library books, and maybe something else, I'm not sure. I'll talk more about that later. Maybe I'll do a travel vlog or something, or you'll see in my next week's end wrap up what I did actually end up bringing. But right now I am participating in the 8 and 48 reading challenge, which is hosted by the people who host the 25 and 5 challenge. So 8 and 48 or 8 and 2, I think it's called sometimes. It's basically you read 8 hours over the course of 2 days. So I'm participating in that. It's super fun, although I'm doing a great job. I've read an hour and a half so far today, which is not that much. These are the 3 books that I'm kind of reading, and if I don't finish them, I'm gonna finish them. So this is my TBR, and that is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. And then I am going to finish Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Darn it, I need to finish it. And then also The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I've gotten past the kind of like sticky part in Jane Eyre now, so that's good. And I think I'll probably actually finish that today. The 5th Season, I am 173 pages in and really liking it. It's very interesting, totally unlike any kind of fantasy book that I have seen. It's almost like literary. And then this is fun. Like, I think I'm going to be glad that I read it. It's my bookmark. I'm about 100 pages in. I'm just gonna like swallow it in a gulp. I feel like I'm kind of reading this because like the last book was fun, but it's not like it's stuck with me or anything. And I just kind of want to know what happens, and I know the reading itself will be enjoyable, but I'm not like madly in love with these books or anything. And there's going to be a 3rd one, and it was only supposed to be a duology, so now I'm a little skeptical. But anyway, so that is it. That is my week's end wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.